here today with Jonathon from BM Trada, who is a product development manager from BM Trada, and they are part of Element, and they are market leaders in testing, inspection and certification services. I would like to say that although we are talking to a certification body, Assent is independent, and we do not recommend any particular certification body. Our topic today that we will be discussing is BS 9997, which is a fire management standard, and integrating that with ISO 45001. How are you, Jonathon, to begin with?
Fantastic. Glad to be here. Looking forward.
Wonderful. So let's get straight into the first question. The first question is, what is the current UK legislation around managing fire risks?
Currently, we have the Regulatory Reform Fire Safety Order, which is what guides the requirement for England and Wales. We do have some separate bills for Northern Ireland and Scotland, but they follow a similar kind of guise. Essentially, it determines who is responsible in terms of shared areas and spaces, in terms of fire risk. We have recently had, as part of the upskilling of the built environment, the Fire Safety Act, which has made some adjustments to this, which we're still getting additional advice from government to understand exactly what that entails. But it just increases the areas, or the expected areas, that organisations and landlords, etc., are going to be responsible for.
Okay, lots going on then, sounds like.
There is a lot of going on. I mean, there is a lot of interest in the market in trying to make sure that we aren't on the race to the bottom in our built environment, that we're looking to improve standards and make sure that when we're handing over buildings and then occupying them, that they could be used to the right intent, and then they have the right quality in place, but then can be easily managed going forward. You'll hear a lot of things like the golden thread, conversations like that, which is just about managing information and making this process a lot easier for landlords and people owning properties.
Fantastic. So how does this new standard help organisations?
Well, it kind of leads into that last point. At the moment, there is a lot of technology and understanding about fire risk and fire safety and how to best implement that in buildings. But what we see, a lot of the issues that come about is when organizations maintaining and managing that on an ongoing process is quite difficult. So you end up in a position where there's a lot of prescriptive requirement when it comes to certain fire safety measures, especially passive ones. You know, when we're talking about like compartments, fire doors, those kind of things, which are just there, they're expected to do their job, but there is a certain amount of extra maintenance and care that needs to go with these, so that in the case of an incident, that they do what they need to do. So having a standard in place that just outlines, gives a framework for an organization to essentially work towards, to manage these risks, make it so it's a very nice and simple for people to just have the right controls and processes in place, makes it so much easier for an organization to mitigate the risks that come with not being aware of the things that they need to do, or not being aware of the intricacies that go with it. I liken it a little bit to like when you first get your car, you could easily run your car without ever replacing the oil, and only after a while do you realize there's a lot of issues in the long run. It's a very similar thing with fire safety measures in buildings, is that they can be put in perfectly correctly to start off with, but unless you're there understanding what needs to be maintained, you'll just miss the ball a little bit. So it's just giving the people, giving organizations a heads up and giving them something that they can work with easily.
I love that. Yeah, I think sometimes you get something put in place, but actually that's that maintenance and sort of the continuation of that. And I'm guessing that's what that helps with this. Brilliant. So who is this intended for?
This is going to come because those people, those organizations, but people in organizations. But it'll come to those organizations where they have a lot to manage. So we can, you start to talk about buildings that tend to have a lot of compartments. So that could be residential buildings, but that could also be hospitals, that could be schools, etc. Where they have a lot of wear and tear, where they have a lot of people going in and out. So as I've already mentioned, fire doors, etc. The maintenance and control that goes around making sure the fire doors are all still working and doing exactly what they need to do in case of an incident. that is a little bit more work that needs to go on with that, especially when you can be talking doors that are in the thousands in certain properties. It's really kind of focused at those. Plus, in reality, you've got to think about the people who've got the highest risk. So anywhere where you have sleeping accommodation, or where you have people who may not be able to escape themselves without assistance, you've really got to look at those kind of like organizations and buildings, because better management for them reduces quite a high risk essentially to life.
Fantastic. Okay, thank you. Um, is it implemented alone or with other standards such as ISO 45001?
Luckily, this has been written in the same Annex SL process, the Plan, Do, Check, Act cycle that most people will be experienced with the ISO 9001, 14001, and 45. It follows if it's going to be the closest to any, it would be the 45001 standard, which focuses a lot around risk and opportunity, but also understanding the controls and processes and emergency processes. But it's still its own unique little like being. It's not something that everybody has experience with, so it does require a little bit more of a technical nous around fire safety controls, etc. That would mean that you would tend to have it maybe running alongside, but would almost have a separate team that manages it,
Okay.
with a direct focus around fire, only because of the skills that are required.
Yeah, that makes sense. So how is BM Trada working with the standard?
Well, for the moment, we are aiming to offer certification to people who are looking to implement a process of this and want that third-party assurance that goes with it. But we're also offering training. So we're one of the first. Well, we are the first provider in a BS 9997 conversion course, which people will be familiar with, say, with other standards like ISO 45001. Which we are looking to get accreditation for. At the moment, we're looking at a couple of accreditation bodies because IRCA is offering a particular accreditation to that. Alongside that, we are offering we offer other competency schemes or certifications that complement it. So we offer like competency around installation of fire products, so that we can test and certify to make sure teams are working to the right standard. We also do it around fire risk assessment. So again, we can certify and guide people in terms of what a good fire risk assessment looks like and who is a good fire risk assessor. So there's a lot of things that we do offer as an organization around this particular area. And essentially, that we are kind of seeing that these kind of schemes are things that people are going to be looking towards, because just the demand that comes in the industry. One of the risks that we have is that, or as we kind of alluded to already, is that we will put everything correctly in place, but the risk is once we've actually has it, that it's not maintained to the right standard. So we can only see more and more people looking to get some kind of third-party certification to this, to make sure that the standards are maintained, not just externally, but also internally.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, that does come to the end of all our questions. So unless there's anything else you would like to add.
No, it seems great. I'm just great for the opportunity to have a conversation about what is, for me, an exciting standard.
Wonderful. Okay, so thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it, and I hope you have a lovely day.
Thank you very much.